Hey everyone. I wasn't expecting to do another one of these so soon, but it seems information just keeps on coming. This should be a bit shorter since we've already gone over the basic info of White Wolf's return, but another interview with Jason Carl popped up on June 4th, and he's even more forthcoming with info this time around, much to the surprise of even the interviewer. The interview was conducted by Christian Hofer of EN World, an RPG news and review site, and they discuss everything from what the change means to upcoming titles, and even dig a bit into the shortcomings of White Wolf in the past and how they aim to avoid that in the future. The article will be linked in the description so you can read it yourself if you prefer, but I'll try to cover all the major points here. With that, let's get right into it. Starting out, for the first couple questions, the interviewer simply gets the rundown on the rebranding back to White Wolf and what it means going forward, as well as the implications specifically for the TTRPGs. Jason makes it clear that the TTRPGs are a big part of why they did this, though the implications are bigger than just the tabletop games. They will internally develop and publish TTRPGs, and this will mean more games faster, and including stuff that is more difficult to do purely through licensees. Similar to the previous interview I covered, he notes that the large number of licensing partners that they've developed over the years, many of whom have yet to even be revealed due to the long-term nature of their projects, such as video games, and how successful their partnership with Renegade has been. He reiterates that nothing will change in the very near foreseeable future with that relationship, and that Renegade will continue to publish products and accessories for the 3 currently available World of Darkness games. However, principal development of the IPs will now be in-house instead of through licensing. The sheer demand for the brand and its IPs and the level of interest from various partners is, quote, so strong and so high and frequent that it all but requires them to be their own publisher again, and that the TTRPGs are the foundation of this, noting that they readily display, quote, the creative vision and imaginative approach that these story brands can achieve. For those who may be concerned about Renegade's place in the future, he also notes, quote, and I think that even when we have finished the job of unifying our ecosystem for TTRPG in-house, it's very possible that Renegade wishes to continue to develop books as a licensee. Which seems to mean that as long as Renegade wishes to do more books, they will be welcome to do so even once White Wolf has its own development ramped up again. Even when asked about the team previously being hands-on with the development of the core books, he is quick to point out that though they led development of that material, it was not done completely on their own, and that they still had outside help via freelancers and things of that nature. Further on the subject of what the future looks like between the two companies, Jason says that the biggest step will be getting the new creative director in place. Though implications previously, along with my own theories, pointed to the fact that one may have already been hired, Jason notes here that hiring one is the first step and that they've, quote, interviewed a number of extremely compelling candidates, seeming to point to the fact that they haven't quite got one yet, though the job listing is no longer present on Paradox's website. From there, the plan will be to grow the team out under this new creative director, which will include people that can help with development and publishing, and people who understand things like printing, distribution, sales, and all the other components that go into running a TTRPG business. Though with this, he also points out it doesn't mean that they will employ a, quote, army of writers, editors, and artists all working full-time at White Wolf, as it is just not feasible to do so, and that much of the work will still be done through freelancers and consultants, but that those relationships will be handled directly by White Wolf now. The interviewer points out that it has been quite a while since Renegade has announced new World of Darkness books, and if this change has a hand in that or if it was just coincidence. Jason is quick to confirm that this is just simply how things, quote, fell out, and that with so many licensees it can be difficult to coordinate all the releases planned, and that ultimately the two things are not related. This has seemingly been confirmed by Renegade as well. As I noted in the previous video, they are expected to announce new books at their upcoming Renegade Con, taking place tomorrow as of the time of this recording. And though many of you will likely have seen what's coming before you see this video, Renegade themselves have dropped some hints via an email stating new books will be announced during the event, as well as Renegade staff member Kevin Schulter on their Discord stating directly in response to a question that, quote, there's a book that'll be announced later this week at Renegade Con with a couple Oblivion powers and ceremonies in it, and providing a very limited screenshot that doesn't reveal too much but still confirms further that there are still books on the way. From there, the interview really starts to pick up, with the interviewer trying to get confirmation of a new game line coming down the pipeline, likely expecting a relatively vague answer, but getting hit with much more than that. Jason states that he can give a more concrete answer and notes that if you look at the development as including ideation, concepting, and discussions in the office and the like, there are actually multiple lines being actively looked at. I'll just read the full statement for this as there's a lot going on here. I think it's no secret that we have ambitions to get our new team working on Mage the Ascension as quickly as possible. We realize that our audience would really like to see some Mage from us as quickly as possible, and we intend to deliver that. But two other games that are occupying a lot of our brain space right now are Changeling the Dreaming and what that might look like today. Obviously, Changeling the Dreaming is near and dear to the hearts of many people in our community. The way the world has changed will definitely affect the game, and thinking about what they will be like in the world of now occupies a fair amount of our imaginative cycles. And the third one that we've really been looking very closely at is actually the Dark Ages line. The dark medieval game that was particularly near and dear to my heart. It's one of my favorite expressions of World of Darkness, and especially Vampire the Masquerade. I definitely think it's time for a fresh look at the dark medieval world and what it can teach us about the world we live in today. How the struggles of the creatures and the people living in those time periods are related to what the world is going through now. And frankly, it's just a lot of fun to play vampire with a sword in hand. So those three things have got our attention right now, but there will be more. I think it's fair to say we will look at every legacy brand. I can't promise that each and every one of them will see an expression as a 5th edition tabletop RPG, but there are many other ways to express these games and these ideas that aren't necessarily tabletop. I think that Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife, the VR game published by our licensee partner of Fast Travel, was an exceptional way to reintroduce Wraith. It wasn't the Wraith experience you might have as a TTRPG, but I thought it was really effective as a horror video game experience. It's true we might not get to something like Demon or Mummy as quickly as people might want, and it might not necessarily happen as a TTRPG, but I wouldn't be surprised if those creatures make an appearance somewhere in our story ecosystem. So there you have it. Mage seems to be the next priority, with Changeling and Dark Ages material being looked at as well, and there may even be stuff for as of yet untapped lines like Mummy and Demon, even if it doesn't happen in TTRPG form. Next, the interviewer touches on the subject of a possible 6th edition of VTM. Jason is quick to point out that they are very happy with how V5 has performed, in part thanks to Renegade, but says they do ask themselves if it's time for a new edition or not on a regular basis. He says that ultimately they should be guided by the audience and what they want or need from the company, stating that World of Darkness having such a vocal and engaged community is helpful in quickly learning what they want and expect from the team. Here he touches again on the possibility of a refresh on what's currently available, but also discusses new material, saying that people are asking for more concrete details about creatures and places that exist in the setting, and talks about how they have not done much in the way of traditional city books, and that a lot of the world in 5th edition is still largely undefined. This was largely in line with their original goals and how they decided to approach the 5th edition setting, but that it might be time to change that as it is one of the most consistent requests they get. He then goes on to discuss another consistent request they see, noting that though it's not universal, it is frequent. The Metaplot. People want to know what is actually happening in the setting, and though 5th edition has been Metaplot light, it is still there, though a lot more subtle and obscure than it is in previous editions. Especially with them having been more of a licensing organization in these past years, most of the details of the Metaplot have been expressed outside of the TTRPG via video games, comics, and the actual play shows like LA by Night. He notes that this is exactly the kind of thing a transmedia story brand should be doing, but that players want to be able to get this information in a more convenient and accessible way. TTRPG books are going to be one of the best ways to do that. Finally, the interview wraps up with a question about why the White Wolf name was dropped in the first place and the past issues, asking what kind of work has been done to prevent that kind of thing from occurring again. Jason says that though nobody wishes to make mistakes, it is always a risk, and that if they do happen, they are hopefully made in good faith, they're acknowledged, and that you learn something from them to prevent the same mistakes in the future. To this end, he feels that the current team has done a great deal to grow trust and transparency with their community to be accountable when they make mistakes. They acknowledge them, and they have tried their best to learn from these situations and commit to being responsible with the IP. He can't promise that there will never be another mistake, but does promise they will approach them in good faith and will do their best to be guided by people who are experts in the fields that could be potentially challenging for them to cover. Everyone who works at White Wolf is very passionate about the brand and have a great sense of personal responsibility to get things right. They're all very aware of past controversies and mistakes and are willing to be held accountable and responsible for doing things right moving forward. Nobody wants to repeat them. We might make new ones, but if we do, we'll make them in good faith and we will do our best to consult with people who know better than we do in those areas, he says. There you have it. A lot got covered for such a short interview, and it's nice to get some more concrete answers on a few things. Vampire's always been my main point of interest, but the greater world of darkness certainly holds some curiosity for me as well, so it's great to hear they'll be doing a bit more than just contemplating what comes next, and have bigger plans than many may have been expecting, especially so soon. Despite this, there are still some question marks hanging around, especially when it comes to things like Chronicles of Darkness, and what Onyx Path's place might be in the future of these IPs. Hopefully, more info will be forthcoming as things begin to spin up for White Wolf.